Hello and welcome, Adam Thomas from Balancing Touch Reflexology. So good to see you and thanks for joining me today. Today we are going to look at charting the feet. So the best practices that I've found and also the importance of keeping good files on your clients. So in this video, what we're going to be talking about here is the actual drawing and charting of the feet, okay? So I'm not talking about keeping your charts as far as like the person's name and their address and other sort of medical information that is important to the session as well, right? Maybe that will be another video. So we're not talking about this page. We are talking more about the actual charting of the feet, right? So the actual markings, the directions of the toes, any calluses that shows up like that. So visually, and also we will be touching the feet to get information as well. So we're going to go through a checklist of what is important to chart. So why even chart the feet, right? So we have a session that we do and we follow it along. So why do we need to take the time to chart the feet? Well, I have a couple of reasons. One of them is because I don't want to keep all that information in my head, right? As soon as the client leaves, so does the information in my head, right? Unless there is something like really important that I need to go and study. And so when I write it out or draw it out on the chart, I have a reference of if they're coming to see me again, I can just quickly glance at the chart and be on the same page as they come back and start the session, right? I also really like it as a history to be able to look back and see the progression of what has changed, what hasn't changed during the reflexology sessions that I've had with a certain client. And another really good one is you can start to use, once you get a whole bunch of clients, you can start to use it as research, right? So keeping good charting can be a great research tool. So how often should you chart clients? So my answer to that is every time. Okay, so if they're first time, obviously I get out the chart and I start charting them because I'm just meeting them, right? And so this is a good way to show the client that you care by taking some notes and that sort of thing, right? It's a standard practice, right? When I first started doing reflexology, it was actually really kind of uncomfortable to chart because I felt like I was wasting their time. But really, if I go for a session or I go to a doctor's appointment or something like that, I find it really important and I find it very caring that they're taking notes, right? Because in today's world, people don't even address you by the name anymore. It's by like a file number and they don't even look at you sometimes, right? And they're just writing stuff down and they move on. So having that time to take notes and ask questions and stuff is, I think, really important in a reflexology session as well. Sometimes I'll get a repeat client come back to me and I'll see their name on the schedule and I'll be like, oh, okay, I can't remember anything from them. I can't even remember what they look like. And then when they show up, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, now I sort of remember what they look like. But I still can't remember anything about them until I see my chart and I see the feet in front of me. And then suddenly I can remember like small little details about what we were talking about, like some weird little, conversation that we were having, not even related to reflexology, right? So it's so funny that I'll recognize the person and stuff, but I won't remember what we talked about or worked on during the reflexology session until I see their feet and then I look at my chart quickly, right? So having a system where you chart and it feels really great, all the information that you need to write down on there is so important, right? So anyway, just a funny little thing that I've noticed as well. So one other little thing that I want to go over before we get charting is to kind of be gentle with yourself, okay? When you're first starting out doing charting, or even if you've been charting for a long time, there are just some clients that I've noticed that they show up and they say they want to work on these sort of things, and then when you get the feet in front of you and you're looking at them and you're like, wow, I can't see anything on their feet, right? So this tends to happen with somebody who maybe is a first time client, right? And you're sitting there and you're wanting to chart something, but their feet they're not giving you any information, right? And it isn't until with these clients, maybe a couple sessions later, that suddenly stuff you start to notice on their feet, right? I've just noticed that some people, they're kind of like, they want to build this trust with you before even in their feet they start to reveal more information, right? So this has happened a couple times to me. It's not just one time, and I've talked to other reflexologists as well. And this tends to be a common thing where some people just aren't comfortable opening up and showing themselves to you right away. And so you'll even see that in their feet, where it's just so hard to get any information from them, right? From their feet, at least. They're telling you that they have neck issues and, their back bothers them and stuff like that. But when you look, their feet look fine, right? There isn't any of those same sort of calluses and things like that. And until a couple sessions later where you're looking at their feet going, wow, okay, well, how come I'm seeing this now, right? So just an interesting thing that can happen to you. And another point that I want to get into too is that charting is ultimately for yourself, okay? So the way that you chart is the right way. I'm going to give you some suggestions and, the way that I do it, but that's not the end-all be-all, right? I don't know. I'm not a chart guru, right? There are some, there's a checklist that we're going to go through that will make sure that what you're looking at gets you as much information as you can, right? But ultimately, when you take your pen down or pencil down onto the chart and what you think is important, some people are a lot more used to using words and stuff, so they're going to probably write more descriptions about what they're seeing and feeling right on the feet, whereas I'm more of a visual person. I'm going to be drawing more of what I see on the feet, right? So charting the best way for yourself is what's important in charting, okay? Because later on when you look back, you will understand what you wrote down. As far as if you're following my method, for example, you'll look at the charts and not understand most of it because it wasn't your way of doing it. So I really strongly suggest that you find a method that works really well for you. Okay, so let's jump into this checklist. So just so you know, in the description below, there'll be a link where you can actually get this. So it's everything that we're talking about in this video today. So charting the feet, and then you have your checklist, okay? So there's two parts to this checklist. One is visual. So when you take off the socks, you get some feet in front of you. What do you see, right? Where are we gonna look? What is important information to start to chart? In part two, it's more of when you're actually moving the feet around, what do you feel, right? And then you chart that as well. So I broke it up into that way. But as you get more familiar with charting the feet, you're going to do your own method. Like, for example, I don't even use a chart sometimes, right? On the very first client, I will use a chart maybe on the following, depending on what's important to chart. And if I need the outline of the feet as an indicator, then I will use my chart. But if not, I will use maybe the back, right, for session 2 of just a blank sheet. So there's no real way, right, wrong way to do this, right? Again, it's really up to you. So let's get into the checklist really quick here. So